The Arverni. The Arverni used to be one of the top faction picks for competitive multiplayer, and mainly because of these three units that were absolutely beasts. The Oathsworn. First, the Spear Nobles. The Spear Nobles have very good melee defense, good armor, good health, morale. They have cavalry counter tactics, shield screen. They encourage. They have expert charge defense. So these are your quintessential tanky, some of the best barbarian spear units available. They are very heavy, so they will be able to stand up to chariots from the front if they are in shield screen. Good charge, very good melee defense, and for a general option they can work depending on the faction you are facing. If you're facing horse-heavy factions, this can be very useful to bring, the Spear Nobles, because they are extremely tanky and they can kill a lot of enemy cavalry with their cavalry counter tactics. For their price, however, their melee attack is pretty low. Their weapon damage is sort of decent, with decent armor piercing, but they're not going to hit a lot of units in the game very effectively, so ideally you want to use these guys against cavalry. The Noble Horse, very good melee cavalry, high melee attack, high weapon damage, bonus versus large, good charge bonus. The only downside to these guys is that they are very expensive. They have good armor and good health, but they can really tank it out against enemy cavalry and are also good for charging unformed infantry and sword infantry if you manage to cycle charge. They also have the expert charge defense, but none of these units are disciplined. So if the general dies, it's going to give a morale penalty of 30 just after the general has died, and it's going to give you a permanent minus 15 to your morale. Then we have the Oathsworn, one of the best infantry in the game in terms of killing power. Very good charge bonus, very good melee attack, weapon damage is off the charts when it comes to sword units, but it's a high base damage and a pretty low average armor piercing damage. You want to get these guys charging in. Good melee defense and armor, very tanky units. They have the shield wall as well. Headhunt is best saved for desperate situations when they are already exhausted, because it's going to drop their fatigue levels very quickly and make them less effective in melee. They also encourage and they can hide in forests. Melee infantry, they have a nice selection of melee infantry. They have the Celtic Warriors. Decent melee attack, weapon damage, just overall decent units that need to get good charges in order to work. But they are very cheap and they can be very effective. Then we have the Naked Warriors, and these are pretty special in that their weapon damage is low. They have low armor piercing, but their bonus versus infantry is going to increase their weapon damage to 40. So this is pretty strange design decision, I think, because the weapon damage of the Celtic Warriors is the same as this unit. This unit has a sword that does less damage to horses and does more damage to men, so I have no idea how that works. But they have an increased melee attack of 15 against the infantry, so they have 49 melee attack against infantry, and that is very good. They have an extremely good charge bonus, melee defense, but they don't really have armor because they are semi-naked. They only have a pair of underpants on. They have the Frenzy, which is going to increase their charge damage and weapon damage at the cost of fatigue. So up against enemy infantry, these guys are extremely effective, but you need to get them there. And if these guys get charged by, they are only light melee infantry. So if these guys get charged by cavalry or shot at, they're going to die very quickly. Chosen swords, cost effective, good swords. They have the shield wall. They have good stats all over, they have high weapon damage. In shield wall they can tank it out to a significant degree against most infantry units in the game save for the extreme elites. You also have a nice selection of spear infantry, beginning with the levy freemen that are kind of anti-cavalry specialists, not useful for much else really. They can throw javelins, so they can be useful in stopping, say, elephants, or just charging after cavalry to get that volley off. Decent morale for their price. Overall, not too shabby stats, but against infantry, with their 12 melee attack, they're going to die a lot. But bonus versus large of 25 makes them very effective against enemy cavalry. We have the Spear Warriors, that are also very good spear units. They have the cavalry counter tactics. These guys are decent against infantry, not great, but decent. They will lose to similarly priced swords, but against cavalry, they are pretty damn good. Then we have the Chosen Spears, your mid-tier spears. Shield screen makes them able to stop chariots fairly well, It's a bit circumstantial depending on the terrain, but it's the best you can do, barring the spear nobles, and it will also enable them to take charges from cavalry, and they have the cavalry counter tactics, so these guys are very good against cavalry. You have a nice selection of missile infantry as well. These Celtic Slingers are your basic crappy slingers with slightly better morale and okay-ish armor due to their shields. Then you have the Celtic Youths with decent shields for blocking incoming melee, incoming missiles, and they have very low morale, but useful against elephants, chariots, and elephants. If you want to soak up a lot of missile fire, these guys are pretty good, because I think they have the 50% chance to block incoming missiles altogether, and they have a decent amount of missile damage, very good against elephants and cavalry. And you have a pretty weird unit here in your Gallic Hunters. They have 125 range, they only have the flaming shot, but these guys can snipe, and that means that it can remain hidden while firing. And that actually means that if you're able to stay at the extreme range, you can actually snipe enemy units without them seeing you. But it's going to be very difficult to make that work, because it's going to be easy to see where the shots are coming from, and just moving in a bit closer is going to expose your Gallic Hunters. But still, it can be used to some effect, it's just very difficult to do so. Celtic Light Horse, mainly used for chasing down skirmishers and generally being annoying. Since they are light, they are going very fast, they have a good charge bonus for their mass rating. They also have the frenzy charge, which can be useful in rear charging. For rear charging, these guys are good. They also throw javelins before charging. The heavy horse, cost effective, good medium melee infantry. They have a classification of heavy, but they sort of fall into the mid-tier range. Decent armor, decent health, everything about them is just decent. Noble horse, we went over those. The savage dogs kind of have a specialist role on the battlefield, in that when you release them, they're going to run towards a unit, and they're going to attack it and run after the unit if it breaks. Then they're going to come back and continue to attack. Against heavy infantry, these guys are useless from the front. Against cavalry, these guys are mostly useless, but they have a niche against enemy skirmishers and horse archers, so they can kill enemy horse archers if they're able to catch them, if the horse archers don't run away. And against enemy skirmishers as well, they can do a lot of damage to them. So the Arverni obviously have their strength in infantry, and there are several different kinds of builds you can bring. We'll have a look at both balanced, rush, and well, skirmish, but you won't really see skirmish, pure skirmish from Arverni. If you are going to go for a lot of units, you can, for example, go for 2 Oathsworn, you can go for 6 Chosen Swords, you can go for... This is going to be pure rushing. And you can go for some of these heavy horse, you can go for 3 heavy horse and a Celtic, or if you want some spear support, you can fill up with your Levy Freemen. If you want slightly less swords, because you have a pretty decent sword spam going here, you can go for some spear warriors for support. If you need to counter, you know that there are going to be, or you think there are going to be elephants and such, you can go for some Celtic Youths or Celtic Skirmishers to protect from elephants. This is a pretty decent Arverni type of rush build. You can also go for a more elite type of Arverni rush, which is going to look... you're going to have more Oathsworn, you're going to have less Chosen Swords. And I find it hard to make room for the naked warriors most of the time, because they are so fragile. So you can maybe have just 2 of these Celtic warriors, and then you can bring some more heavy horse to hunt down enemy skirmishers. If you take even less of your Celtic warriors, you can bring more of your heavy horse. But it's going to be a bit challenging. You can play around with the amount of units that you bring as well. So if you want to bring more Celtic warriors, you can, for example, bring 4 heavy horse and some Celtic warriors. Bring some skirmishers to support against enemy elephants, for example. But still, the main base of the Arverni will always be their strong infantry. Now, for a more balanced type of build, let's say you are going to go up against, you're going to go up against, let's say the Seleucids, Bactria, you're going to go up against Parthia. You might want to bring some more decent spear units. I still want your good swords, in case there are enemy swords on the field. some cavalry to tie down enemy cavalry, and then you might even go for some more. The Celtic Slingers have very low damage. Celtic Skirmishers can be decent in this role. The Gallic Hunters are very expensive for what they can do, so it's going to be risky to bring those instead of, if you want to go for some cheap skirmishers in your balanced build, you can go do it like this, and then you have a nice balanced build. And I often don't find room for the noble horse. I know some people like to bring 2 noble horse. If you want to go more cab heavy, you can, for example, do it like this, support them with some spears, bring a main core of your chosen, and go for mainly cheap supporting units. So this can absolutely work. It can be a bit more difficult to make it work, but still, it can be a nice army. You just need to use your noble horse well, take out enemy cavalry, support with spear warriors, and go for enemy skirmishers. So there you have it, kind of standard rush that mainly consists of using your Oathsworn, Chosen, and Celtics. Some people just like Chosen and Oathsworn. That's fine with some light spear support, but you have a lot of very good infantry options with the Arverni. And finally, if you have the Caesar in Gaul, or Kaiser in Gaul, GLC, you have the ability to bring Vercingetorix as your general. And Vercingetorix has a few abilities. He has the Unity of the Tribes and Relentless, and those abilities have been nerfed heavily. So Unity of the Tribes increases morale, Relentless increases attack. They used to be pretty devastating, but now they are sort of niche, and you can only use them once in a battle. So I think the commander is probably a better choice. But if you're going to specialize in if you're going to go for Oathsworn, for example, with the warrior general, it's not the best idea because you don't have scare units, but a strategist Oathsworn general can, for example, use his headhunt and battle rhythm. So headhunt is going to increase his melee attack and morale, and the melee defense is going down. But the thing is, they're going to be tired after they are done with their headhunt. So if you use second rhythm on the, and this can be done for cataphracts as well, if you use the trample or the headhunt, then you can use second wind and instantly reduce their fatigue level, and that's going to make them very, very scary in melee indeed. And together with battle rhythm, that's also going to increase their ability to kill a shit ton of troops. So thanks for watching. I'll see you again on the battlefield.